everybody. Hello, Monet. Hello, beautiful Jessie. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. It's Wednesday, and I know, Jess, you've been mostly on a Thursday these last few weeks. So we're back to our usual Wednesday slot with our lovely Jessie. How are you, Jess? Where you been?
Very
What you been
good.
gallivanting? What you up to?
Yeah, lots of gallivanting. So I encourage people. I've got my new channel launched, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. And I started doing my videos, which are every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And so lots of good topics that I'll cover each week. And I encourage people to tune in. This week, we're going to be talking about how God speaks to us. So that's a great discussion. You'll definitely want to tune in for that. And then, yeah, so that's a lot of the gallivanting. And then, still doing the Veteran Survivors Champions programs. I want to thank everybody who has donated for those. We've had some big needs the past few weeks. We have a veteran that has a need for basically a way to heat his house for this winter. It doesn't have, we'll just say little room heaters are not going to do the job. So that's probably our biggest current need. Um, and then we always have, veterans that need um, bills, household items, rent. So there's several different ways people can get involved. And I encourage you to stop by, ask questions on the website, illuminatethedarkness.com. You can donate there. You can also send to Illuminate the Darkness, P.O. Box 10443, Fargo, North Dakota 58106. Please make sure that you're specific if you want your funds to go specifically to veterans or to the survivors or champions. Make sure you label that, please, and greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing. And thank you again for everything that you're doing for these people and the organizations and the people you support. I think it's amazing. And I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure they are extremely grateful for every bit of support they can get, especially with you guys having your winter now. It's
Yeah.
lean times, I think, for a lot of people as well. I can't say I'm unhappy that we're getting our sun back. I'm very happy about
I
it.
bet you enjoy that. We all enjoy the sunshine.
I'm going to for all of 6 whole months. I'm kidnapping it back. So yeah, well, I hope you guys are all keeping warm as you're moving into your winter. As you can see, things are getting warmer around here, so I'm very grateful for that. Anyway, guys, what a great opportunity we have today because thank you, Thea. She put together a lovely little PowerPoint presentation and by popular demand, and I know we have done previous videos on this before as well, where we actually cover some other stuff as well, signaling, posturing, stuff like that. But we've had quite a few requests to uh, look at some, especially with the royals and stuff. So Jess, I'm not sure if everything here is what you can answer us on, but I know as well, we were just speaking, and I'd love for you just to share with our audience what you were saying to us before, is
Yeah.
that not everything is as it seems. So there's different layers, but I'm going to hand over to you so you can just explain that
Yeah,
to our
definitely. We
viewers.
want to give that disclaimer too, because what I'm seeing happening is that as I've given decodes in the past, I'm decoding off of that picture, which includes the event or the situation that it's shown in. So that doesn't mean that everything can just be applied across the board. You have different types of decodes that have to be done. So in some of these pictures, like it's specific to, whether it's an event, whether it's around a ritual time, whether it's for a specific ceremony. Um, you also have the situational that you have to add to it, whether it's meant to be taken broadly. There are some things that are definitely like across the board, but other things are specific to that time, that place, that situation. So it has to be interpreted in light. So, don't, like what we say today, don't take it then and say every time you see that hand signal, oh, it must mean that person's in the system, or it must mean there's going to be a ritual. That's not always what it means. So,
Mm.
I try to specify when I'm doing a decode. Um, if I'm speaking to something specific, like usually the magazine covers, those are there for a time and a place. They're sending messages to people. And so I try to clarify some of those things, but I just want to keep people from misusing or misinterpreting some of this stuff. So,
Yeah, I can vouch. I mean, when we just started our channel and everything, my goddaughter, she did like this one like rock on symbol, she's like rocking on. And I took this photo and I did this post with which was saying when life throws you a rock, just rock on. And it's
uh-huh,
just stuff like that. They've used these symbols for so long. We're used
right,
to it. Part of the culture, it's part of the thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually Satanists or Freemasons at the
right,
same time. It's just that moment. And I can remember
Yeah.
the trolls and everybody posting those pictures and saying like, "Look what they're doing," and I'm like, that's my grand God, Charlie, God, do that. She's not a Satanist stuff. No, 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 no. So yeah, we have to be very careful. It's part of the
right.
culture, symbols. We've been using it, and we've been also brainwashed with the media and like singers and stuff. So it doesn't mean every person that's throwing the symbol on their pictures are necessarily even aware of the stuff that's really happening behind what those
Hmm.
symbols really mean and how they communicate with those symbols.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Monet, do you want to pop that on for us so Jess can have a look? And I'm sure everyone is waiting in bated breath, with bated breath.
Do that. Here we go. Says the Royals handshakes, watch this and more.
Okay, Jess,
So,
these sessions
yeah. So
and
the
their
first thing I want
symbols.
to talk about here that I think is important are the parades, the meet and greets. So when you go into a social situation in the hierarchy, usually, the way that they'll pose it is that, you know, everybody's invited to an elite member's home. And the job of that elite family who's hosting is to kind of, you know, as people are coming in, they're going to form a line and they'll be in charge of greeting their guests that come in. And so there'll be an honor exchange between them where those who are usually, you could have higher level members um, who are part of that greeting, but um, you'll know everybody's status usually by the way that they're greeted, and only those who are equal or are really like part of that individual circle are going to be able to touch them. And you'll notice like the lower level members are not going to reach out to touch, or the hosts are not going to reach out to make that actual physical connection. They'll just smile at each other and kind of walk past, or they'll have a gift that they hand to the elite member, instead of the physical contact. So this is a way of distinguishing placement in an event. And there's always some sort of symbol that they use. It's not always sashes. um it could be, even the lace on their dress. Like, we've talked about lace, we've talked about jewelry, diamonds. So all of those things say something, and I think that the sashes are particular to the royals because you aren't necessarily going to see that in a ritual environment or at their high level social parties. They're not going to have people usually wearing those sashes to distinguish. You're usually going to have rings, jewels, uh, lace, and other things. Pearls can also be another signifier. You would have medals or medallions at times that could be used as well. And then the other thing with that is that, like in this one particular, they also will wear their, medallions. So you see the medallion that's specific to Queen Elizabeth, and the Orders of the Maltese, which is the white crosses that they have there on the bottom. And she is or has been the head of the Order. Maltese is another name for the Order of Malta. And we saw that when, after her supposed death there, we saw that that Order of Malta was dismantled, um, meaning that they did not choose somebody else after her to succeed and to carry on the hierarchy of that order. But what's interesting about that is kind of, um, the Knights Templars under that Order of Malta are the protection. They're kind of like the assassins or the the military for the Queen. And so you have to ask, why did they just dismantle the military for her? Because obviously they're not just specific to her, you know, they're supposed to be specific to all of those royals, but under her command. So that gets a little interesting.
Are you
But
saying, sorry, just on
go
that
ahead.
note, I just want to clarify this. Are you saying the Knights Templars have been dissolved as well?
Just there, the ones that were underneath her. I didn't
Okay.
see that it was a national or that it was like a cross quadrant um, thing, but people can look up and see there's an article saying that the Vatican has shut them down. So it very well could be across the board, both internationally and in the US. So um, that may
Is
get
this really a,
interesting.
is this really a sign from your opinion? Is this a sign that these secret societies are starting to disintegrate?
Absolutely. I mean, their military's down, the Vatican, but not just the Vatican, the Holy See are the ones that put out the orders to the Vatican to have all the smaller parishes send in their money, which that sends a huge message because the Holy See is the financial backing for
Mhm.
all these orders and the Vatican. So if they're out of money and they're requesting money be sent in, you have to ask, well, where did all of their wealth go? Um, yeah,
Confiscated, maybe? Has it been confiscated?
I believe so. Yep, I believe that it's been confiscated and redirected for proper use. But um, the other thing with the sashes, again, the colors, um, I think these sashes are specific to the royals, and they usually use them to connotate the titles, um, to distinguish between dukes, barons, countesses, counts. So it kind of, within that you'll see the distinguishing within, or it's specific to their royal um, titles and things like that. So
Cool. Diana with her gold sash.
Yep.
Tell us good news here, Jess. Tell us good news here. And her little
Again,
brooches
I
and
feel
things.
like in this case it's you do see special jewels. Again, you see the Queen's emblem for the Order of Maltese. You see the other symbols on there, which you can't quite get close enough. But I think the gold in there was very specific to things that were to Diana. So the different colors do mean stuff. Usually, typically, gold is going to represent like the Eastern quadrant representation. So it's hard to know if it was an indicator for quadrant rule or jurisdiction. The same thing with Kate. We do see again. You see a lot of the same things. She's got the Queen's emblem there. She's got the white crosses, which are the Order of Maltese. So, that's something to take note of, is how many of these royal women are actually, part of these Masonic secret orders. All of them are involved in that. And, keep your eyes on the women, because I think we're going to find that the women have really played a big role in this brotherhood system with the Masonic orders. And, the crowns their jewels are all specific. It shares their dimensional access, which is why they display it,
This to me is a very interesting picture.
Yeah,
Because firstly, of the blue sashes that are going in opposite directions from the Queen and Camilla, the way the Queen and Camilla is standing versus Kate with her hands in front of her in the red dress. So is that an initiation? Red is usually that. Interesting picture.
it could be, but it also can signify their quadrant jurisdiction. You would have the sashes going in different directions naturally, because that's going to display their authority. So those with the higher authority are going to, and who are direct bloodline, are going to have theirs going one direction. We know Camilla is brought in from another family line, and she doesn't have the same authority or power. So that's why you're going to see hers in a different direction. It's going to distinguish, show that they're not the same, but they are connected. And you do see, both the Queen and her in a white dress, which represents northern quadrants. And, it also is a form of, when you're in certain ceremonies or situations, they're going to distinguish, even among the high priestesses, they'll distinguish who has more authority and power. So white often would be, white or black are usually the ritual colors, or let me rephrase that. They're the clothing colors that the highest level members are going to wear when they go for social events. So like, in my situation, I was still a successor, but when we went to these events, either based on the event, I was either always dressed in white or in black. And it would just depend on which event. And that distinguished me from others. And other times I think there were a few times, like for my satanic baptism, I was in a light blue. But usually those were the colors that they would have us in. And then, the red's going to be also for high priestesses. That's their traditional color that they're going to wear. And with the men, really where you distinguish who has the most power is by, their emblems that they're wearing, which are going to display their Masonic connections.
Okay. Any reason why they're all standing with their hands behind their back in this picture? Usually they have them, as we're going to see now, in the front and in pointing in different directions. Anything with their hands behind their back there?
You do have traditional poses. Again, it's going to signify authority. So, the queen, whoever has the highest authority, which in this case is going to be the queen, she's going to be stepping up to that forefront position, and they want to draw the attention in the picture to her. So it's a way to take the draw in the picture off of the men and put it on the women and to display their authority. And you have to remember that in a lot of these, in this order, up until, the past couple years, it was a matriarchal run society behind the scenes. Like, it doesn't mean that the men's orders were inactive. They were very active, but who really ran things behind the scenes? It was the women. So again, that displays that authority and power.
Wow. Okay, I want some clarity on that, please, because you've often said stuff like that in some of our past interviews. So when you're saying the women have a lot more to do with these things behind the scenes than what we are aware of, can you give us more information on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the structure and the hierarchy of the system, you've had women at the front and the forefront of preparing things for the end time events. So, I've talked about at the very top, you had the Queen Mother of Darkness and the Mothers of Darkness. Those women directly interfaced with Satan and would get directions from him on, what needed to happen. Their job was to run the system, to, that included the placement, like seeking out the successors, who was to be in which position, overseeing the overall running and governing of the system. You also behind the scenes had the men that we call Merlin, and those men, their job specifically was to, be in charge, grooming, raising up, and training the Antichrist. But these women are really, their focus was running everything, preparing that system for whoever the Antichrist is. With with that, then, all of the, the next level of authority you have is the Satanic or the Druidic Council, also called the Council of 300. But in that council, you have all these high level subchambers. So you've got, the Council of 5, the Council of 7, the Council of 9, the Council of 21, and every single one of those councils, I believe, or the majority of them, are governed by women. Even, the main council, you have a couple of positions in there that they're not necessarily equal. You have, you've had Soros, who was the phoenix of the council, which means he sat at the top seat. He had a big voice and a big vote in that seat, the same as now, his successor has been Obama. But they're still beholden to those in the higher chambers, which who runs the higher chambers? You have women like Somerset Belanoff, you had the Queen who was in there, you had my proctor, you have the Mothers of Darkness. So, you know, they're still beholden to those individuals. And so that's
Interesting.
kind of the best way to describe it, is that behind the scenes, you've got these women who have been procuring, raising up, um, testing gifts, putting people into certain places and positions, um,
So they've
but they're made to make
manipulated,
the men look good, make the men look like the men are really running it.
but
And
it's
now the men are
meanwhile
stepping into that role. Sorry.
very, very interesting because, it's like women are very good at manipulating. I mean, the negative aspect of
Yeah.
women is complete manipulation. So they would have these women behind the scenes manipulating because women are, um, they're the ones with the intuitive powers, really the psychic gifts predominantly, right? So they
Right.
would be able to be feeling what to do, and then they would then instruct their men. And isn't it interesting that the Luciferian system has hidden that from the world because we live in such a patriarchal society? So
Yeah.
why is that, in your opinion? I mean, I just see the polarity here now, so I'm just interested in what your opinion on that is.
I think it's it goes along with their beliefs, that revolve around the magic and how the universe works, that you always have to have equilibrium. So with that, you've got two forces, one's evil, one's good, one's, male, one's female. And they like to invert things as well. So, who do they give the majority of the power to? The women. However, those women are subject to making it look like the men have all the power. Um, you know, so there's a lot of inversion, a lot of
Mm.
confusion.
Mm.
They're not really confused by it, but when the world looks at it, it makes the reality of that system questionable. People,
Wow.
the way that they split everything up, it's all done by purpose. Why are there so many orders? Why is the system so segregated and, you know, organized and running in so many facets? They don't just give everyone the program or the plan. Like everybody learns their piece or their part, and there are so many parts, and they want the world to believe that they're all separate things so that you don't realize that the
Mm.
enemy has a very organized system that has been controlling the world.
So
He
that
doesn't
whole,
want.
as you say, the different secret societies, at the end of the day, really all belong to one secret society, but it's kind of
Right.
splintered off to confuse us all.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Because
And
they
it's
don't
good.
want you to all know that they're part of, what is called the Brotherhood.
And
That's
it's a
the
nice way to
real
cover your tracks.
religion.
It's a nice way to cover your tracks as well because when you did something dirty on this side, you could just clean that, but the system
How
could say
funny
that
is
on this
that?
side. Yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
is, yeah. If one piece goes down, they aren't too worried because, that's why they segregate everything. If everybody takes a stance against the Masons and that department goes down, they still have four other departments running the system. The Jesuit Catholic, the Kabbalah, the Satanists, and the, Mormons. So they purposely have structured it that way so that if one system falls, um, the system itself is still running.
Absolutely. Very clever. Very, very clever. But it's funny now, when it's revealed.
Right.
And I see the trolls have arrived in full force here. We've got some X-rated people in the chat room. Anyway, I
Oh,
just wanted to say that. So, okay, Great, thank you. I didn't mean to divert, Mona. I don't know, Jess, is there anything else? Catherine in the red dress, have
No,
we
not on
addressed
that
that?
picture.
Okay. Okay, not sure what these are, and if there's any specific relevance, Jess. What is your opinion on this?
Well,
Order
it's
of the Elephant.
interesting that they do, you know, like we talked about the different titles. Could it represent the different orders? Absolutely, it could. You know, it looks like here they've put out some of those different orders. You know, the Order of the Royal Victorian Order, the Order of Saint Olave, the Order of the Seraphim, the Order of the Elephant, which I haven't actually heard of the Order of the Elephant, so that's an interesting one. I'll have to look into that. Seraphim is going to be an order that actually is very unique and distinct, because you have the Seraphaical priestesses, which come from the line of Miriam, Moses' sister, and they're the only ones who are allowed to serve in the temples, the Jewish temples, and they're able to carry the priesthood. So they are directly connected with the Sanhedrin, and those who are the highest members in that order will be called Morning Stars, which are a very special elite group of women that are like the Sisters of Light or comparable to the Sisters of Light, but they're considered a upper class of the Sisters of Light. So very interesting.
So they've all gone through their training. They've all been in the system from birth, whatever. All these ladies wearing their sashes and their crowns. It's not
Yeah.
like they got there without taking their vows and their initiations and stuff like that. Is that right?
Right. I mean, these are women that were bred for these positions, chosen, raised up into them. You know, they've been training since they were little, and, you know, now are just fulfilling or stepping into their role and position.
Wow. Okay. Anything else, Monet?
More than just.
Okay, there's some more of them. Order of Leopold, Netherlands Lion. Wow. Charles III.
Yeah, it's interesting how, you know, again, I think it has to do with titles, positions. You're going to see different things, and again, you know, notice too, with each of those sashes they have the different order emblems for the different Masonic orders that they're probably overseeing, not just a part of. You know, these, they're displaying it for a reason.
Isn't it interesting that we hear sometimes from if we go back to listening to people who are in the war, and I'm hearing women who could be a hell of a lot more cruel than men could be when it came to dishing out torture. So interesting. Again, you know, when we're looking at that, again, we're looking at war as a man's game, right? But then,
Right.
yet, when there were women involved, I know that especially I heard with the Japanese. I mean, those Japanese women could be something from another dimension when it came to knowing how to excruciate or to inflicting excruciating pain. So it's interesting again that what you're saying, and of course they are, you know, it's when you say that, it just makes perfect sense. You know, there's a saying that goes that behind every man is a good woman. Behind every strong man is a good woman, you know, or successful
Right.
man is a strong woman, whatever. So, yeah.
Mm.
Yep. And you do have hidden orders that they're not going to advertise the names for, like Order of the Blue Rose. The sashes can represent that. And so then you're going to see, in those sashes, like also the different, it's almost like a matchmaking thing. They have to advertise their breeder status. Like if you were displaying horses at a fair, and most of the time they're going to advertise those horses based on their breeding status. So that's part of it as well, is that they're advertising where they stand in their position, what is their lineage, what orders are they specific to, and what is their positional status within the system.
Wow. Like breeding horses.
Yep.
Very,
The
very,
Breeders' Club. That would be a better name for it. And today on the Breeders' Club, we
They say
have
you
we
do.
Princess of Bulgaria,
They say you do unto other what you do unto yourself. So if we are breeding our own bloodlines, then obviously we got to do it with the animals as well. Just like look
Right.
how they manipulated dog breeds and everything to fix, bloodlines. Crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad that they um that the women have to go through that they're
Yeah.
but that's how they're looked at.
So we're hearing that the Danish Queen is she's stripped everyone of their titles except her successors, as far as I know. Um, what is that about? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything specific about that, but I do find it very interesting. And I think there is a lot to keep your eyes on with the Dutch royal family. As we see, it really shows that there are things happening when we see stuff, because normally, if the system was in place, um, the death or supposed death of the queen is not going to affect things across the board. But what we're seeing is literally the dismantling of the entire hierarchy structure. You have the
Mm,
Vatican falling, you've got the Holy See falling. That's where the majority of the money for these royals in the system comes from. And so when that falls, now we're seeing the stepping down of those who have held prominent positions in the system. And, it really shows that it's a worldly breakdown, because otherwise, the death of the queen isn't going to cause all these other things to happen. It wouldn't affect, their cousins over in, their Danish cousins or others. But we're seeing a huge toppling happen.
yeah. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. It's time.
Yep.
Don't know where Mona is gone.
Okay. Did he freeze? I was wondering.
I'm, I'm not sure where he is. Yeah, he seems to have frozen up. Okay, well, until he comes back, yeah, I just find this super interesting. It really is, and I think especially now, I saw a video as well of the not too long ago of the Danish royal family, and then the young son, the prince must be, literally in a video, literally flashing the 666 sign. So they were in a public now. I'm sure the Queen's funeral, actually, that's when it was. So it's nice to see what they're doing, right? And then
Right.
not to actually. But as we say, here's Morne back. But as we say, that it's we can't just assume that when everyone is doing that, that means they serving the Dark Lord.
Right.
Okay, here's Morne back now. So let's just see.
Okay, continue. So handshakes and postures.
Right. So these would be one of those things that you can read across the board. And, it's used to signify or get your attention to say, hey, I'm another Brotherhood member. Other terms that they would use besides, usually they're not going to use that term Brotherhood. They have to signify to each other through a sign, a signal, or a token. So even it could be in the giving of a token, and then there's going to be a certain response. Like if they were to go into a restaurant and they wanted to let that person know that they were a fellow member of, the Brotherhood, the craft, or a secret Masonic society, they're going to either shake a hand or they're going to make a comment. In the old days, one of the common comments would be that they would ask, if they were inquiring as they went into a business, they would say, "Oh, are you a traveling man?" That there would be a certain response to that. If you were in the Brotherhood, you would answer, you know, in a certain direction. So they're always headed towards the east. So you could say, yeah, I'd love to travel. I was just in California, but then, I went to go visit my family in the east or in Massachusetts. You name someplace that's east of that direction, and that would tell that person asking the question that yes, I'm in the Brotherhood. Um, if they get just a general response like, oh, yeah, I like to travel, they're going to know that person is just a normal person, that person is not a fellow craftsman. So that's part of their coded languages. But, these handshakes also, it can be specific to orders. So like the one where it says the real grip of a master mason, um, all of those are going to kind of distinguish hierarchy, placement, or it can just be if they say, okay, this week, everybody, we're going to use this handshake. They would keep switching it up, and that's going to help them distinguish who's a regular member and who's not. If you don't have the proper sign, symbol, or token, you don't get into the current meeting. So sometimes they'll do that to distinguish who are the right standing members and who are those who are slacking. And that way, like, you can't just come and join if you're not, you know, if you're not being upstanding, they're going to kind of put the pressure on you and forcefully exclude you until you come into compliance with what they desire you to be doing. So that's a way that they work that sometimes.
Wow. So they've got their own little lingo there.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's an interesting one. So now we've had a lot of questions about Trump, Jessie. And here's
Yeah.
President Trump sitting with Mr. Macron, and I know I'm probably not pronouncing his name very, very well, who we're going to see now has recently received a black eye.
Right.
So tell us about what this is here.
Yeah. And I want to put a disclaimer out there because, I know that and fully believe that Trump has received all of the decodes, the symbols, all of this stuff. It's not common for a high level member, like let's say, if I was in the system, if I was traveling around visiting these people, I would have one specific, usually general distinguishing handshake that I'm going to use with these members. And you would see that handshake repeated by me over and over. And you would not see me visiting each member doing a different handshake. So, um, like you might with some people, you might have one or two people that you would distinguish with. But what's what's interesting about Trump is that I believe he's purposely using these handshakes in order to distinguish and let the public know that these people are Masons. So why I believe that is because it's also done very upfront and out in the open. Usually these handshakes, when they're happening, are very discreet. So, even the way that the body is postured, you know, like when I was in the system, if I was doing a handshake like that, like I would stand in a certain place so that my hand and the other individual's hand were usually hidden from other eyes seeing, so that just the two of us knew that we were acknowledging our brotherhood vows, to each other. So it's a very individual thing. It's not something that they do necessarily, like there are certain postures or stances that they do to signify that they're in order. But with things like a handshake, you don't want people knowing um, necessarily what order or what placement you are. And you're not going to necessarily be doing it like that. There are moments where you want everybody else in the room to know who you are and your place and your position. But things like this is not one of those moments. Like they don't want the whole world to know. And yet that's exactly what's happening is Trump is allowing it to be seen so the whole world knows this person's placement and hey, he's involved in the Brotherhood. So that's why I believe that it's being very purposely done for the purpose of exposure. So that's my opinion on it.
There you have it, everybody. Everyone has been sending in questions for 2 years now about Trump and his handshakes and this and that and the next thing. But before we move on to the next one, we also have touched on these guys with the black eye clubs, right? That have this big fat bruise on their eye. Now, looky here. Look at Mr. Frenchie.
Yeah, with this one, it's interesting because this is not your typical black eye that you're going to see in the system. I've brought out that that black eye can be a way to signify that they've been engaging in adrenochrome, but also more than not, it usually is a sign to members of the Brotherhood of a very specific vow that when they go into the system, the biggest vow that you take is the vow of silence. And every so often they'll do a reminder and they make a public display so that everybody who's in the system, when they see that individual with a black eye, they are signaled to remember their vow of silence. And when they take that that vow or reminder vow within a ritual, usually they will place their eye upon a book, and as they take that vow, part of that vow is that at the cost of your left eye, you know, if you break that silence, it will come at the cost of your left eye. So that's part of their vows. This, like I said, usually what you're going to see is a little bit of a black eye under um, you know, just underneath, but this is a very significant black eye. So if this was supposed to be, you know, it looks almost more like a panda eye. Usually you're gonna, you know, which means that there's been too much blunt force through sodomy, and it will break all the blood vessels. Um, but usually it would be in both eyes, not just one. So this may authentically be a real black eye. I don't think I wouldn't, if I saw this, I would not take this as a public Brotherhood symbol. Uh, you know, I would take this as in he really has a black eye, but I could be wrong.
It just really punched him because they
I think he
and that
really got punched, Mornay. I do. I mean, or kicked. It looks more like kicked by a horse or something, you know,
I
to
was going to
cause
say
that look.
that's like a stripe. It's almost like it's slanting to the one side.
Yeah.
It's quite a crazy looking bruise, that it really is. And that ivy looks very red. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's him then.
They didn't just
Okay.
hold out the book for him, Chantel. They brought the horse, the buggy, and the carriage. You know?
Exactly. The whole bookshelf was there.
So again, this is you know, what's interesting about this particular handshake with Trump is that you know, again, I believe he is fully aware of all the different symbols, handshakes, things like that. So when you're meeting with somebody, you know, like when I was at things, when I went to take somebody's hand, the proper response would be that I would have one hand on the bottom that would reach out. They would put their hand in mine to shake it, but then my hand would come over the top of their hand. So that over the top symbol that we see shows that I'm in a higher position than you. I'm the one running things. Um, you know, so again, here, I think that Trump is definitely pointing out, but he's also usurping that he has control and authority in the situation. And I think it was the same outfit that she was wearing when he went to visit her. I was laughing so hard because normally, if you're at a meeting or in the presence of others, with you know, world leaders, you're going to walk side by side. But if you go back and watch the videos with this, Trump literally is walking in front of, and not even like in front to the side at some points. Like he's literally completely blocking any view of the Queen. And then he like stops awkwardly, which makes her kind of, she's like, what in the world is going on? So it definitely was not proper procedures in these type of situations. And
Yes.
so I had to laugh because he almost does this start stop thing, which really throws her off several times. And she almost trips and falls. And you're just like, okay, nobody in the system is going to treat the Queen that way in her high position and, you know, almost make her fall and trip, especially since she's elderly. You know, I just had to laugh because I think he definitely was messing with her in his humorous way. So
I would now looking at that. Is that Lizzy? Wait now, Monet. Is that Lizzy or Lisby?
I do, with the teeth. You could always tell with her, um, you know, Lilibet, or I knew her as Lisbeth. She would always kind of end up putting her head like down, especially when she smiled, and her teeth are more pointy than Elizabeth's were. So I do believe that that is Lisbeth, and she always had a cute little scrunchy eye thing she would do too, which I I always thought was really cute. So
she was the nice one.
kind of, yeah. I mean, kind of. I can't say she was completely innocent, but yeah, kind of much nicer than the other one.
Sure. Oh my goodness, this man, this Ratzinger, that's the devil. Look at that. That man, few people had, no one has creeped me out ever before than Ratzinger, worse than Ratzinger. Wow, he is evil. Look at that face.
Yeah, and with posture here too, you see the head tilt. You know, that's a certain sign that they're greeting each other that way. And you know, the hands again, you see the equal there, you know, that they're in an equal place. You don't see one hand over the other per se. So it is a brotherhood shake there that we see.
Yeah, he's been named as one of the atrocious perpetrators of people here in Africa. Him and the Queen would regularly come and visit and do their thing here.
Yeah, I remember back at the beginning we had some conversations about him.
Sure. Tony Blair. Okay, interesting pick, but maybe not. What's the hand in the pocket story there? And the others are all...
So what you see with the hands crossed over, that's a typical stance. The hand, it can be gripping the hand, it can be gripping the wrist, or it can be gripping the forearm. And that would be typical for higher level members, like if you had high priests and they're in the presence of a grand high priest, the high priests are going to cross their hands over to show who has the authority in the situation, who's of higher level or power. So here we see that obviously Charles and Harry are of higher power than the other two. You know, the hand in the pocket can be a very common Masonic stance. Particularly, you will see that hand in the pocket for like the orders of the Scarlet Cord, the Order of the Monitor. It can be for the Order of the Garter and Order of the Bath as well. In this picture, you know, it's interesting. I'm not quite sure what Harry's hands are doing. The picture might have been taken before he was fully in posture. You know, typically you aren't going to see wringing of the hands. You know, so I think they were getting ready for a picture, and you know, this was just one that they put out. But you do see otherwise, like it looks like he's doing a brother hand shake on himself. But
yeah.
And the bow ties are significant to some of the secret societies as well, particularly usually the Skull and Bones. But again, we'll clarify that does not mean that everybody wearing a bow tie, you know, because they are used for formal engagements, is part of the Brotherhood system or part of these secret societies. You have to have several other indicators to know for sure if they're part of a secret society or not.
This is an interesting pick to me when it comes to that posturing, because I see there William behind Charles, which would say to me that William's probably of a lower order. But why is Harry standing far away and facing either direction.
Yeah, distinguished yet, and you're right, because he'd be considered of lower status at that point compared to the others, yet they've distinguished him. So the question is it just for the sake of the picture, or was this picture used to send a certain message? We're not quite sure on that, but it very well could be a special message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and definitely here Harry is signaling his Masonic connection. So yeah, here he's sending a message, but it's interesting that poor Melania has to be in that picture with him, and you can kind of see the disgust on his face that he's purposely sending a very strong message that he's got the Masonic ties and connections.
Sure.
There he is in his lovely apron, which signifies that he has, the acceptable Brotherhood seed of the bloodline. But anyway, yeah, that's typical Masonic garb and posture in that picture. There, you just gotta laugh, here's the Queen, but notice again, like, the positioning, that you have an equal positioning, yet you have Bush is slightly in front of her, so that is significant. His placement as a high priest or grand high priest is a little higher than hers, but proper procedure is that, they have to present themselves as world leaders, as equals. And yet, he distinctly does the as below symbol, the as above, so it is below on that side, and, distinguishes the devil horn there in that posturing. So very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like this, Mornay. I'm going to let you share because about this part. This is good.
The he's basically the guy that's
Physician.
Physician is that working for Biden to help with the monkeypox situation. He's also gay, and the whole stereotype that again, like AIDS, monkeypox gets spread more in gay communities than other communities. It's like AIDS all over again, the same story. But an interesting guy, if you go look at his like what he's doing, I can show you. This is amazing. The Good Doctor.
It just shows the brazenness of these people, that they aren't afraid to hide anymore. And with that, you've got the Rosicrucian Red Cross up there, the plus sign. I would propose that there's a lot more to this Plus magazine. But
yeah, this is April 2021. Can we ditch our daily pills? COVID-19 vaccine 101, fighting drugs resistance. There you go. Instagram post.
the new HIV czar. So, that says to me he might be of the Romanov line. Just guessing on that, maybe.
Just a little thought.
Now, I brought out with what's interesting about, go back to, well, first that picture we see he's got a pentagram, but that also can be, that's common in that world with some of the masochist sexual things, but you aren't always going to see a pentagram with that.
Yes, this
So it tells me this guy's probably into some dark sex magic, but
this
yeah, so that when you go to that second one, yeah, that one with the bird face. When you go to the bird face one, nope, the other one. Yep, that one. There is a specific order among physicians and others, and you see it now starting to come out in a lot of the shows like Netflix and others, where they show these men in robes with hoods and those beaks, and that represents the plague doctor. That would be used also to represent death. And you go back to the Egyptian, some of the Egyptian beliefs, and they would, who was the one who would be in charge of the afterlife and ushering people into the boat with the afterlife. And even with that boat, you have this being that has the beak. So I can't remember the name of the specific order right now offhand, but there is a specific name to that order of those who wear those beaks, and they do get into the grotesque type of death things.
Isn't his name Anubis?
Anubis.
Yes, that's the Egyptian one, but there's a specific name to the order.
Okay, I see.
But it represents that death. They get into some pretty dark things in their rituals because of that, and because of their beliefs in the connection with Anubis. So it's interesting that this is now the president's doctor, and then you look at the other picture and it's like the Last Supper, but it's got Satan and vampires and Frankenstein and werewolves.
Look at
that. So very interesting. Like I said, it'd be interesting if they're calling him the new czar, if there is a Romanov connection to him, that would be very interesting.
That's one of his Instagram posts from 2018.
Right. Maybe I just saw the Minstar. Maybe Minstar is, I can't remember the name of that order right offhand right now. It might be Order of the Minstar. Let me quick see.
Oh yes, because he has Minstar favorite holiday. Minister favorite holiday.
Yeah, it might have something to do with Minstar. I'll have to pray and remember that. I usually don't. It's more of dark circle. Some of them are highly connected with the ninth circle. But yeah, usually if they send those guys, they're, you can bet death is close by, and they have every intention of going after you. So that's not a good symbol when you see the bird, the bird robes, guys in robes with bird beaks.
that is very scary.
Yeah. I just wanted to. You said something earlier about the 666, but there's 4 6s, so it makes it more official.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, actually, yeah, it would be kind of funny because it would be usually they wouldn't put the fourth 6 in there, but you actually have, as I look at that again, you have 2 sets of 3 6s. So up above in that first part, they have a 6 p.m. Then you've got the 6 rides, and then you have that fourth 6. So you've got 2 sets of, well, actually 3 sets of 666 that are happening in that. But otherwise, typically it would not be kosher for them to put a fourth 6 in there just randomly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but there's 666. Yeah.
Yeah, but they've
Mm,
got the 3 sets of the 3 6s,
mm.
so that then for them makes it geometrically correct and approved, communications. And here we have the lovely May Musk doing her different symbols. I've brought out that each like these, she's just giving that homage to the Brotherhood system by showing the single eye. But that bottom left is the one that kind of stuck out to me today because I think it's a rose with the long stem, but what it looked like to me when I caught that today was that they have their old methods of procuring different hormones that they use and mix with the adrenochrome. And one of the ones that I would see is that they would use these long metal skewers like that, and they would go through the nasal cavity usually and would tap into the pineal gland and remove some of the hormones that way through a tap. So it reminded me of the tapping when I saw that particular picture. So, and
It's
then
that is
the bottom right there, you see the pearls, which usually signify, that order of Melchizedek, which I can confirm that she is part of that order.
the colors in the pictures above. Anything significant about the colors she's wearing there? I mean, I love those colors. I really
It would
do.
depend on the time of year. Like I've said before, like with the magazines, they usually will signify where things are happening, where rituals are occurring. Green is going to be northern quadrant. With her, the direction of her hair very well may be implying things. So, it would depend though on when the magazine was put out, where it was put out, to be able to know for sure what it's signifying.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this one just typical, again, you've just got her signifying on the magazine cover, um, you know, homage to the elite, to the Illuminati with the single eye. Sending comms, but we don't know fully what comms.
Friend Vanity, September 2022.
Yeah.
Well,
Now
we know
this,
fantasy. Hmm?
yeah, so this I was going to say, we know that there are certain tribes, traditions that are commonly known for that type of look. The things that stand out are the rings and the way that she has a distinguished black piece of cloth over her neck. I think that she's signaling for a very specific place. Um, I believe it is in Africa, near closer to Ethiopia, where they have the tribes where the women wear the rings around their necks. And their hair, they would often put things like this in their hair as well. Um, so I believe that she's signaling towards that area, that there's going to be stuff happening.
And the
And
gold as well, the black and the gold.
yeah, and is it a call for that area, for the high priestesses in that area to rise up? You know, I believe that that's what that is, but
What is on those rings? Are they, Mona, can you just put the rings a bit closer? I want to just try and see those
it
designs.
almost looks like
It's
a
a close.
hand or claws.
Yes.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a hand or claws on both of them.
Interesting, she's covering her right eye. Usually it's the left eye they cover. Would there be any significance about that here?
It's dependent. I'll just leave that blank for now, because it can be either eye that they cover, but
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Gosh, gosh, gosh. Thank you. And that's the end of our story today, all you beautiful people out there. I hope you enjoyed that. Jessie, thank
Yeah, really
you. That was
fascinating.
thank
really, really
you.
good. Thank you.
Thank you
You.
to Thea. That was a wonderful presentation. She did a great job on that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anyway, so as we always say on the show, time flies when we're having fun. We will cover the other topics that I was looking at. We'll do that next week then. So I'm not sure. Thank you everyone for watching. Jess, is there anything before you end off in prayer for us that you just want to say?
No, let's end off in prayer. So, Heavenly
Great.
Father, we just thank you so much for this time together, and we thank you for the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding that you equip us in all of these things to be able to understand our enemy and those who are working for him. And Lord, our heart is always in beat with yours, that really we desire that these people would come out, that they would come to a knowledge of the truth, and that they would come to understand the depth of their evil and their wickedness, and that they would turn away and repent. And Lord, as we speak to that, we also have to look at our own hearts. And I just ask that anybody out there today who's struggling with anything that is unhealthy or not good for themselves or others, I ask that you would bring us to that place of repentance, that we would turn away from the things that are displeasing to you, that we would choose to seek good, to have good thoughts about others, to seek love and kindness and gentleness, that we would pursue those things, and that would really become um, the bulk of who we are, that we would be known by our love. And I thank you that you are so good, that you are not a God who holds these things over our heads when we sin, but you always give us that chance to confess and repent. So I just encourage anybody out there, if there's things that you need to give up today, bring them before the Lord today. Let them go and choose to walk in goodness, righteousness, justice, and love. So we thank you for that, Lord, and we just bless your name. And in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jessie.
Mm.
Lovely
Yeah.
show. Enjoyed that very much. Thanks, Monet, for making sure everything, even though
Yeah.
you disappeared on us there for a little while, but you were back. So very grateful for that.
Lovely. Thank you, JC.
Thank
you.
you,
Awesome.
both of you. So
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Take good care. So if you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe. Find us on all our platforms: Facebook, BitChute, Twitter, Telegram, Odyssey. BitChute especially because we're going, it is BitChute. No,
Rumble.
Rumble, sorry. Rumble
Rumble.
especially. So we're going to be definitely taking things more and more across to Rumble. Okie dokie. Mwah. God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.